Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Today, we have 4 major developments as the resistance reaches a new level of military readiness and Tigray Defense Force on Frontline. Firstly, about Amhara Fano announces a trained elite commando force. Massive new recruitment underway. Training videos flooding social media. Secondly, about Amhara civilians forced to hide in gorges and caves to escape Ethiopian National Defense Force shelling. This is what Abiy Ahmed's national dialogue looks like from the ground. After that, about Tigray Defense forces continue advancing across multiple front lines. Artillery is now being exchanged directly between Ethiopian National Defense Force and Tigrayan forces. The lines are closing. And in last, about Tigray's new military chief, Fiseha Kidan, who he is, what his appointment means, and how he connects the Tigray Defense Force to both Tigray People Liberation Front leadership and regional allies including Sudan and Eritrea. Let us begin with a development that signals a major qualitative shift in the resistance. The Amhara Fano National Movement has announced the formation and completion of training for an elite commando force specifically prepared for intensified operations aimed at overthrowing the current Ethiopian government. This is not a general recruitment announcement. Elite commando units are specialized. They are trained for rapid strike operations, infiltration behind enemy lines, targeting key infrastructure and command positions, the kind of operations that conventional resistance units are not equipped to carry out. By establishing a dedicated commando force, Fano is adding a capability it has not formally claimed before. But that announcement is only part of the story. Across social media, videos are circulating showing something remarkable in scale. Amhara Fano is conducting mass recruitment. Large numbers of new fighters are being brought in and put through military training. The videos show training camps, rows of recruits, weapons handling, physical conditioning, the visible infrastructure of an army being built at speed. Think about what this means in context. The Ethiopian National Defense Force is watching its own recruits walk away from training camps. 15 police personnel deserted a training program in South Wollo before completing a single day. Senior officials are defecting to Fano rather than staying in government service. Meanwhile, Fano's training grounds are filling up with volunteers, people choosing to join. People who were not dragged from their homes at night, but who arrived at a camp because they made a decision. That is the difference between a resistance built on conviction and an army held together by compulsion. The commando force is the sharpest edge of what Fano is building. The mass recruitment underway right now is the foundation beneath it. And together they represent a resistance that is not just fighting a war. It is systematically building the military capacity to win one. Now to the human cost that is being paid while governments hold conferences and issue statements. Across the Amhara region, civilians are hiding, not in shelters, not in designated safe zones, in gorges, in caves, in the natural hiding places that the mountains of Amhara provide, because those are the only places that Ethiopian National Defense Force artillery shells are less likely to reach. Families, children, elderly people. Farmers who cannot harvest their crops because the fields are too exposed. Women who cannot reach markets because the roads are under fire. Communities that have stopped living their normal lives because normal life in their area has become a path to death. The cause is direct and documented indiscriminate shelling by government forces using heavy weaponry during their operations against Fano. When artillery is fired into areas where civilians live, without distinguishing between combatants and non-combatants, people find whatever cover they can. And in the rural highlands of Amhara, that cover is stone and earth. We have been reporting artillery strikes on residential areas, on schools, on monasteries, on communities along every front where Fano is active. What the civilians hiding in gorges and caves represent is the cumulative effect of that shelling, not a single incident, but an ongoing reality that has made normal life impossible across entire zones of the Amhara region. While Addis Ababa hosts delegates at a national dialogue conference and calls it a historic moment for Ethiopia, thousands of Ethiopian citizens are sleeping underground to stay alive. That is the real state of this nation, not the conference hall, the cave. From the Tigray front, the picture being reported by independent media in the Amhara region is one of steady, sustained Tigray Defense Force advancement. Tigray Defense Force units continue to advance across multiple front lines. And in the most significant development of the current phase, in some areas, artillery is now being exchanged directly between Tigray Defense Force and Ethiopian National Defense Force positions. Artillery exchange means the forces are close enough that both sides can target each other's positions with heavy weapons. This is not the situation of weeks ago when Tigray Defense Force was described as mobilizing and preparing. This is active, sustained engagement across the line of contact. Ethiopian forces and Tigray Defense Force forces are now within close range of each other at multiple points. The front line is no longer theoretical. It is a line where shells are crossing in both directions. We have received videos of Tigray Defense Force forces active on the front lines. Due to operational security and our commitment to not exposing fighter positions through publicly shared footage, we are withholding those visuals. But we can tell you what the sources on the ground confirm. Tigray Defense Force units are advancing. They are active. And the contact with Ethiopian National Defense Force forces is real and ongoing. The Ethiopian National Defense Force strategy of concentrating in urban centers along the A2 highway was supposed to create a defensible position. Those positions are now being approached by Tigray Defense Force from the Tigray side and contested by Fano from the Amhara side simultaneously. The defensive corridor the federal government is trying to hold is under pressure from two directions at once. Finally, a closer look at the man who now leads Tigray's military, because understanding who he is tells you a great deal about the direction the Tigray Defense Force is heading. Tigray's new military chief is Fiseha Kidan. Before taking command of the Tigray Defense Force, he served as the head of Tigray's Peace and Security Bureau, a position that gave him deep institutional knowledge of Tigray's security apparatus, its intelligence networks, and its relationships with external actors. What is being reported from multiple sources is this: Fiseha Kidan and the Tigray People Liberation Front leadership are working in close, coordinated alignment. No major disagreements have been confirmed between the military command and the political leadership. In a situation where military political tensions could fracture the resistance, as happened between the Getachew Reda faction and the Tigray People Liberation Front Fiseha's relationship with the Tigray People Liberation Front appears stable and functional. That matters because during the political turbulence that surrounded the removal of former interim president Getachew Reda, Fiseha reportedly remained clearly aligned with the Tigray People Liberation Front not with the Getachew group that was later expelled and moved to Addis Ababa. He chose a side when choosing sides mattered, and he chose the Tigray People Liberation Front. But his significance extends beyond internal Tigray politics. Sources indicate that Fiseha Kidani has established active communication channels with regional actors, specifically including officials in Sudan and Eritrea. This is the pseudo alliance made operational at the military command level. The political alliance between Tigray People Liberation Front and Eritrea, the strategic cooperation being built with Sudan aligned, forces these relationships now have a military commander who is personally connected to those channels. Additionally, most of the senior Tigray Defense Force field commanders are reported to be aligned with leadership. The relationship between the political structure and the military command is unified in a way that it has not always been in Tigray's recent history. A unified political military structure, a commander with regional connections, and an advancing force that is now exchanging artillery with the Ethiopian National Defense Force. Fiseha Kidane is not a name to watch in the future. He is a name to understand right now because the decisions he makes with Tigray People Liberation Front leadership in the coming days will shape what happens on those front lines where artillery is already being fired. 4 stories today. One direction. Fano has built an elite commando force and is recruiting and training new fighters at a scale visible across social media. The resistance is building an army while the Ethiopian National Defense Force struggles to keep its own recruits from walking away. Amhara civilians are hiding in gorges and caves driven underground by the same government that claims to be restoring peace. Tigray Defense Force forces are advancing across multiple front lines and exchanging artillery with Ethiopian National Defense Force. The lines are close, the contact is real, and Tigray's new military commander, connected to Tigray People Liberation Front leadership, to Eritrea, to Sudan, is coordinating a military force that is now actively engaged. Everything is in motion. From the training camps filling with Fano volunteers, to the cave entrances where Amhara families are sleeping, to the artillery shells crossing the line between Tigray Defense Force and Ethiopian National Defense Force positions. The war everyone said was coming is here. We will keep reporting every development. Like, share and subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an update.